But right now, I think it's gone that. It's gone past that level
it's
now.
Social media, really. I mean, in 3 weeks, Portable just blew out of nowhere, and before you know what's going on, a Range Rover, benefactors, people shattered
different girls,
different Kenya, baby mama, threatening to collect people's girlfriend the way he collected his own girlfriend. Like, my good, like you know.
And you feel like. Are you serious? Because normally, before you be able to get those kind of news, right, you have to wait till 9 p.m. at night, or wait till the next morning when the newspaper print company will have to bring it to your face. Right now, it's right here.
It's a different era. You guys were the real OGs, honestly.
But it's also very interesting that we are able to witness the two phases. Yeah.
Which again, I also think that our generation sits on a place both in entertainment and in politics where we are a little bit, as millennials, a little bit shocked. We are military babies and we are democratic babies, and so we're not too sure where we belong. So we've experienced military for most of our growing up, and by the time we became aware of how we should be appointing and electing leaders, we're probably hustling to get out of school, hustling to survive, hustling to get a job. And now that we are now aware, the political process has been perfected by the politicians, such that we are trying to play catch up. We're trying to get to that point where how do we hold them accountable? How do we call our reps to find out that what is your opinion on this particular subject? You know, things that matter to us. And so, you know, we're still trying to find our feet. The politicians, they have gone far.
They've gone far. And it's insane because sometimes when you talk about them, a whole lot of people don't actually know that many of these guys are way learned.
Sorry, have we started?
Yes.
For it.
That's it. We're rolling already. Many of them are well learned. They've been out there. They went to Ivy League schools. And you now be wondering that how can you have this kind of profile and your home is like this and you don't give a crap. You don't care.
I think, you know, I guess it's multifactorial. So it's the idea that a lot of Nigerians really don't feel like they can change things. And that's one. Two is that I think we have all been raised to have this pathologic or abnormal amount of respect for constituted authority, whether it's our parents, you know, like for instance, growing up at some phase, I really could not speak in front of my father unless I was asked a question.
Many of us.
Yes, you know, I mean, what do you want to say?
As a matter of fact, I remember that if he parks his car and we are outside, everybody will run inside because that must not meet you outside.
They must not meet you outside. For us, he must not have met you watching television. As in before he gets back. Tell you what. So as soon as the show was on, and then you know hear ping, ping, and he has a particular method of running by. It was what is there? Your mind will just cut. You know, just so if you have your time, you touch the television, top of the television to see if it was on. If it doesn't have your time, you just go into his room. You know, so yeah, so that's what it is. So a lot of us have grown up with that. You know, thinking that you really cannot challenge authority, and it really is. I think the paradigm is shifting because, of course, I interact with a lot of parents and a lot of, you know, woke parents. I know people use the term woke, and in some spheres it's not a good term. That's over wokeness.
Stay woke.
Stay woke. So some parents are now allowing their children to really express themselves, such that if the parent is doing something that the child feels they need to challenge, they allow the child to challenge them, you know, to say that, mommy, I don't like this, or this is what I think it should be. And somehow, I think at the end of the day, societies are really better off for it, you know, such that people who think that they are untouchable are really not, and you know how to hold authority to account.
But when we look at this whole scenario and Nigeria, right, it's spread out too much. It's so deep that you cannot, there is no specific way to fix it, right? Because number one, tribalism, right, is my Yoruba friend, is my Igbo brother, right? Even when you know that this person is supposed to be accountable for this, right, they will put that one inside. Baba, I had a situation where somebody stole studio equipment. The policeman that came was telling my friend that they stole his equipment that the boy is from the same village.
Are you serious? As himself. So you should think of, it's too deep, doctor. I don't like to. In the words of Odogu, if you no get money, you dey cop. You no get money, you dey cop police. Me, I dey laugh, you gone. As in, that's
a deep one.
Yeah, so that's just it. So funny enough, this whole village thing, if the guy had enough money to actually pay the policeman what the policeman would have been asking for, you'd have been sorted. You go forget say in the same village. You know, even if say those say nine brothers say. You know, go even look in face. So somehow the society really does have a long way to go, and we get there someday before the Lord comes back. I hope.
There is this growing up, right? There is this way that we see doctors, right? Like doctors are like angels.
Let me wear my glasses.
Yes, silly.
Oh my god.
There is, because most parents, right, growing up, it's always between three professions. We want you to be a medical doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. That is what most parents want for their kids, right? So if you go out of the norm, maybe I want to be a pilot. They will say, that one is hard, but you can't. It's
respectable.
But nobody ever thought that you can encourage your kids to be TikTokers or YouTubers a couple of years ago, right? No. But in this new age, right? Look at the way you're dressed as a doctor. Nobody like. You're like
if they see me on the
regular dude,
like they say I be upcoming and say
you're like is this the doctor? But there are so many guys out there now that are changing the narrative that okay, because of this profession I don't have to be in that box of
I mean, I totally agree with you. So yes, I think medicine is a very respectable profession all over the world, and it is still so in Nigeria. It's just that then Nigeria was a place where all you needed to have was a decent job and you would earn a living wage. And so the doctor, because he was in charge of making sure that people survived, making sure that people lived, he was viewed, as a respectable person. But now the paradigm is shifting such that now what people are earning in terms of money, even for the doctors are struggling to survive. So what defines respectability these days is shifting towards now get money. Now get money. So not as if doctors are not respected. Doctors are still respected, but people that are respected more are politicians. fraudsters, exactly. As a matter of fact, you do know that in some societies they encourage.
But the two of them are
they are linked.
They are 5 and 6.
They are 5 and 6. Then they follow their safe. So that really is it. So the paradigm is shifting. Some people still respect doctors, but I just wish the respectability also came with a little bit of the financial well-being that doctors should be getting. But that aside, everybody in Nigeria is suffering. So forget the whole doctor, which is why doctors are moving out of Nigeria in droves. The figures I heard last week, crazy.
I actually wanted to ask about that. That what do you think is happening? Because the level at which not only doctors, the level at which professionals are jackpotting.
That's an English word now.
Yeah, you need to add it to the dictionary. The level at which professionals are jackpotting in Nigeria is alarming.
It
is alarming.
And I think that is the new pandemic in Nigeria, because before you know what's going on, you see, it won't show now. It's in 10 years' time, when our children are here and then we're looking for specialists. Okay, I need a pediatric endocrinologist, and there simply isn't any around. Or I need, a specialist, gallbladder specialist, and you simply cannot find one. And then you wonder, where did they all go to? So unless something really changes now, then I think we'll have a crisis on our hands. The idea of, parents wanting their children to be doctors, lawyers, or engineers, that was what everybody wanted to do. Now people look at me and say, this one a doctor. This one cannot treat me. My dear, I can treat you. I'm a consultant pediatrician. So but what I found was that the profession demands a lot of you. Human life is essential. Human life is important, and it doesn't matter whether the life is 1 hour old, whether it is 100. There is a dignity to the human being. Simply because the human being is a human being, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be poor, nothing. And that dignity dictates the ethics of our practice, such that we are told that for you to get the privilege, and we consider it a privilege to treat people, For you to get the privilege of treating another human being, you have to have proven yourself that you have the knowledge, you have the skills, and you have the right mindset to actually do that. And so medical professionals and medical bodies actually make sure that their physicians are practicing medicine in line with the ethics of the profession, so that the generality of society is protected. And so, going through that process is not easy. They make sure that you are sent through the fire to come out as refined silver. As a student, you would have lectures from 8 till 5. You come back by 8, and then you will stay till 12 midnight, so that you could see patients, you could assist the doctors. And when you do graduate, that continues. And then when you now go to specialist training, which I did, at Luther as a pediatrician, that continues. So some days I wouldn't sleep for 48 hours because I'd be on call for 48 hours, know. So you do work, and then you continue the following day, up until night the following day. And the work doesn't end at 4 o'clock. The work ends when the work ends, when the patient is okay. So, all of that can take a toll on one's mental health, because there actually is a lot of bullying in the medical circles. And so, because it was just the way they were taught.
My wife is a professional medical person too. She's a medical practitioner, and she's been practicing for over 10 years, although in America. So I know how those things.
It's crazy.
It's sometimes it's crazy. Really, really. Sometimes for days she'll just have this mood swing that.
Tell me about it. I mean, and of course, you think that you are immune to the idea that you've seen a patient die and you think you are getting along with it, but you're not really getting along with it. You're actually being affected. So what I now told myself was that, at the end of the day, if all you have is medicine and the occasional misery that will come with it, but that is just one aspect of your life. For crying out loud, you have a body, you have a mind, you have talents, you have things that you're interested in, such as fashion. As I had to tie my turban to represent, because there are so many other aspects of you that really will give you so much more expression and fulfillment than just practicing medicine. Which is why I had to look for those outlets, and so they include things like fashion, they include music, they include the comedy that I do on my page, and I really have found fulfillment, and I found that there are ways in which you can actually meet your goals and fulfill your destiny and just become a whole human being, rather than just focusing on your profession. Your profession will take you only so far, but what I think will take you the long mile is your talent. And most of us don't actually even bother exploiting that. Your profession will take you only so far, but it's your talent that really will get you the distance.
Again, if you now have a talent that you're able to turn to a profession, you are
I jackpot. I jackpot.
Wow.
Honestly. So I mean, like, if I have, if really, for instance, an example of, even though my voice is okay, but I'm not planning a career in music anytime soon. But if I say, okay, my talent was music, and I went into music, and I found out that okay, I was actually doing well, getting good airtime, getting good airplay, all of that. Man, I'll start to tail off the medicine small, and go and do things, because at the end of the
shout out to Dr. Sid.
Is this really doctor? Now when I see doctor, so truth of the matter is that so because at the end of the day, what we're all looking for in this life is financial freedom, and our professions help you to get there. But do they help you to get to the place where you can say that, what, I want to kick my feet up and I want to do what I want to do? Most people are in their professions because if they don't go to that 9 to 5 every day, they will not eat. They will not send their children to school. And so what everybody is looking for is, that kind of financial freedom that will give the opportunity to say that, look, what, I enjoy my profession, but I feel like at this point in time, I want to change, and I want to go to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris to learn how to cook. And that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And you can just make that pivot very easily. And so that's what financial freedom does for you. And most of us, what societies do is that they create professions to help society to move forward, not necessarily to make you as an individual wealthy. Professions are taught to make sure that society moves forward. Medicine to keep the society healthy, engineering to make sure that infrastructure is available, architecture to make sure that houses are built. Some people are good enough to actually become entrepreneurs in those spheres and become wealthy, but professions are really to better the lot of society rather than to make the individual wealthy. So if you're looking to create wealth for yourself, my dear, think of your talents, think of the things that you can do to actually make yourself
how much impact do you think doing a 9-to-5 job every day and neglecting the talent, how much impact do you think it has on your health?
Man, see, if you ignore something for long enough, it will actually go away. So I mean, for those who you know, who are familiar with the Bible or who go to church, plenty of you don't. So the idea is that for the man that had one talent, I went to go and bury it inside the ground. It was taken away from him, and it was given to the other person, who had plenty talents. I went to go and look for
that's
more.
The Bible.
Yes, that's the Bible story. Yes, that's the Bible story. So the matter is that if you suppress your talents for long enough, it really will go away. It really will go away. For instance, I could really draw as a child, but I haven't drawn in in a number of years. And right now, when I put a pencil to a paper, it's not. Yes, it's not good. So talent will go away if you ignore it for long enough. But so the idea is that if you ignore your talent or if you neglect your talents, if you, at the initial stage, if you pay attention to it and you feel like I need to develop this and you don't, it will bother you initially. But all it takes is for them to land you house rents and for them to land you school fees. My dear, you will forget the talent and you will face what you are facing and it kind of dies. And I think that somehow it makes you less of a whole person. Yes, you might, get on fine and get on fine, but think about what would have happened if you had pursued the talent and you had made it great in that talent. You'll be doing what you enjoy and you're getting paid for doing what you enjoy. Not like the 9-to-5 that's for you to get out of bed and each time you think about a Monday morning, you're like,
yes, it's actually really tough, and it's tough for being a Nigerian. You get, even out there, it's tough going in the morning, but as a Nigerian, it's
particularly hard.
There are people that wake up as early as 4 a.m. To leave their house to get to their workplace. They'll get there maybe 6:37. That's like 3 hours on the road. They sit in front of this cubicle and type for hours. And in the evening, 6 o'clock, they leave. Another 3 hours to get home. Bro, if you do that, hours, if you're already spending close to 6 hours on the road every day, right? You cannot do that for a long period of time and not break down. There's no way. Even the mental state is going to be fucked up.
Yes, it's going to be totally, which is why we need comedians, which is why we need comedians in our lives, because
something to just ease
the stress. So I mean, initially, which is what happened to me. So initially I started off talking about children's health issues, because there was a lawyer that asked me that, doctor, I'm explicitly breastfeeding my baby, maybe I can give water. Like, water care? You're not giving fufu to the baby now. We need that me. So I was like, you know what, if a lawyer doesn't know this, then who knows it? So I now started putting my posts out on Instagram. They were just like me talking initially, but so that actually got me to using Instagram in the first place. And then I was going to Instagram, saw comedians, and I was like, this is really good. So if I could pass my message across in this kind of way, then people will pay more attention.
I stumbled on your page a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what I was looking for. And I was like, it was the accent that got me. I was like, wait, this is not American. Is it British? No. So fortunately, when Sheila and I were talking, it was not like, do you know what? I said, yes, I've seen him, but I would love to talk to that guy because he has his content filled.
It's my DukeofSurulere character. So there he is.
DukeofSurulere.
DukeofSurulere. So I started it. So what happened actually was that I was the very conservative doctor, but I watched a program. I watched, Oye Mike, that's Michael Abiso. He used to actually, put out inspirational posts at one point. And what he said is like, see, whether you do good or you do bad, in 100 years time, when you are dead and gone, it won't matter. You're in the ground. So all this talk about, is he going, what did he do, and what people are going to say, you'll be dead and so will they, and none of you will matter anymore at that point in time. So if you keep on restraining yourself and holding yourself back because of what people will say or your fears, then you will die having lived a life unfulfilled and having had a story in you that nobody ever got to hear. hear. So I said to myself, and quite frankly, there are quite a lot of people, online who don't necessarily have, terribly important things to say. They are fun things, but they're not terribly important. But I had something important to say, and I wanted to
have fun with it
and make people hear what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so I just thought about it that I've got to be more noisy than I am right now. So that's why I was like, you know what, the Noisy Naija Paediatrician.
Yeah.
So Oye Mike, shout out to
that's
Oye
your
Mike
handle.
for the Noisy Naija Paediatrician. So I know Oye Mike makes quite a lot of noise.
So it was all like
inspired me to actually become that noisy.
One thing I've also noticed that the fear of that transition is part of what keeps people it makes people lose the dream, because sometimes they'll tell you for them to actually pay attention to that talent, they had to leave this 9 to 5. Like they cannot be doing this and face that, and in the process of let me see if I can juggle both together, they end up losing it.
It's really crazy, and I really don't advocate for anybody to necessarily
leave their job
9 to
and
5
if
you don't have a trust fund somewhere that is waiting for you,
especially in Nigeria.
You don't have a sugar anything, whether it's a mommy or a daddy. Just have a sugar something. If not,
I'll food the bills.
I'll food the bills, because if you leave your 9 to 5 and you don't have, and you want to be struggling from scratch for to develop your talent, try and do the two at the same time.
Yeah.
Until you think you have enough savings.
Yes.
To actually make the pivot.
Yeah. What I think people should do, and I've done it too in the past, is you see that's 9 to 5. After that's 5 in the evening hours, right? You can, if it is 1 hour, 2 hours, just spend on your craft. Put something out there. Don't even expect any results. Just face. But once you start to see the traction from what you're putting out, then you can now pay more attention to it. But just don't let it go, and because there's so many, especially Nigerians. I don't know what's in our DNA, right? But it's very hard to see a Nigerian that does not have any talent.
Very unusual, right?
Maybe it's because of the level of poverty in the country. But if you put 10 Nigerian kids down, right, you'll be amazed what 8 of them can do.
Yeah. I totally agree. And what we find is that, so I mean, shout out to parents out there, or everybody who is taking care of children, because I mean, some people will say that God bless Dr. Renner, this one that you're talking is your own, because that's 1 hour that you think you will find when you get back home. Again, we've talked about how you will spend 3 hours on the road getting back, and some people coming around 11 p.m. Depending on if trailer fall on the road or not, depending on if trailer fall on the road or not, or two trailer jam themselves on the road, so when they get home, the last thing on their mind is to develop their talents. They just want to, and when they get home, unfortunately, the responsibilities of the presence of the children, especially for women who are working and who still have to cook, who still have to take care of the children, take care of the home, deal with their in-laws. So
deal with neighbor, deal with pastor.
So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So I do believe
you have the time. Yeah.
So here's what it is. I believe that there are these motivational speakers and there are these methods of improving yourself that tell you that if you actually work on your craft for 20 minutes in a day, every day, take 20 minutes, and I don't think 20 minutes is too long. Some of us go into the toilet and spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes
on
pressing Instagram in the toilet. They say you should not be carrying your phone inside toilet again. No, you're carrying shit on your phone. No. So the idea is that if you give yourself 20 minutes every day to just deal with that your craft, you actually find out that at the end of the year, think about 20 minutes times 365. That's a significant number of hours. Yes, and again, there is no investment in yourself that is instantaneous. Even your boys will tell you that they spend hours and hours on their laptops.
They put hours in it.
They put hours, so you've got to put that time in, and then when you know that you are proficient, then you can demand value for exactly for your experience. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's it.
Awesome. So being I have one personal question that I want to ask. Ladies, right? Is it normal when we as guys are sucking breast and the lady has never had a child before, and we can still feel some milky liquid coming into our mouth?
Very interesting. I know my followers will be like, Dr. Renner is talking about breast. But see, it's normal. So here's what happens. All you need for milk to come out of a breast is stimulation of the nipple. And once you do that, and it can be stimulated with anything, it's your fingers, your mouth, and then there's the potential that milk can come out. However, it's not because there's something that we call wet nurses. So what happens for some people is that if a mother cannot breastfeed their baby, either because they don't want to, or they have a medical condition that has, not as if women that have HIV cannot breastfeed. They can breastfeed, but some of them have just decided that, I don't want to breastfeed. There's the option of giving the baby to what we call a wet nurse. So this is someone who is not pregnant, who hasn't given birth recently, but once she puts the baby to that breast, the milk just starts to come.
Whoa.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
And that's normal?
As a matter of fact, some women can actually give their babies to their mothers or their grandmothers to actually breastfeed if they are not available for some reason or the other, and you think you do need to give breast milk to that child. So it does exist. So if you, and breast milk is extremely nutritious, so if you are sucking and then you taste something, thank her.
Is it nutritious for us as adults too? Like
any milk is nutritious for you. but again, you do have to be cautious about sex and sexual encounters, because transmission of diseases and infections can happen. So for instance, hepatitis B can be transmitted through body fluids, including breast milk, including semen, vaginal secretions. So so be really careful if you are going to be doing that. So what does it taste like?
I don't have the experience. I'm just
asking on behalf of it.
On behalf of the guys that asking. Could it be more so? Because the normal Nigerian average guy will tell you, no, they don't
even have to have. Although if that is the case, the lady, if she hasn't given birth before, she does need to see a gynecologist to just explain to them, and so that they can measure a hormone that we call prolactin. Because for some ladies, if they have a high level of prolactin, it can actually lead to infertility later in life, and so they should just have it measured, just so that their mind is down.
Yeah. What's your take on? What's your experience about the COVID thing?
COVID-19 has changed our lives forever.
You being a doctor,
I hate COVID-19.
You hate it.
COVID-19. Honestly, because COVID-19. I mean, funny enough, the announcement of the arrival of COVID-19 in Nigeria was on my birthday. Wow. February 27th, 2020.
It actually came for you.
Came for me, but God passed. And I caught COVID actually early 2021 when I went to go and do NIN registration, and the place was a bit crowded, So I believe that because it like about a week after, I started having funny symptoms. But COVID-19, I know there are lots of conspiracy theories around COVID-19 and say, was it manufactured in a lab? Was it? Yeah. See, so here's what it is. Even if it was manufactured in air fire, it's here with us, and we have to deal with it. So all that is water under the bridge. And if you've ever caught COVID-19, then it's really not something that you want to get. So all the measures that we've spoken about, so things like hand washing, wearing face masks, which has become the norm, for a lot of us, get your vaccine.
Yeah.
Just follow all those rules and do them. What I found is that in Nigeria, of course, if you wear face mask inside public transport in Nigeria, people look at you like, Corona is one time.
But for some reasons, I think there are clinical trials and evidence that shows that the face mask, especially this regular one that we use, it doesn't do shit.
So it's better than not wearing anything. And the problem is that those ones that actually prevents viral particles from getting in are very expensive.
Yes,
and they're a bit uncomfortable. The N95. And they're a bit uncomfortable to wear for a long time, So at least this one is better than not at all.
There's actually a doctor on YouTube that did an experiment that was blowing a vape through that video, and you see everything coming out like this. They tell you, said the COVID-19 virus itself is millions of times smaller than what this vape
is.
So how are you telling me this is protecting the virus? See, regardless.
Let me do the one that even though let me do the one that I know. You know, so that's it. And I know that for instance, COVID-19 has been a very inconvenient thing for me in terms of travel.
Yeah.
So there was a friend of mine who was supposed to have traveled to Australia. On his way, the agent had booked a flight for him, you know, but the agent didn't realize that airlines coming from Nigeria cannot stop over at Singapore at the moment. But it was at it was at Murtala International that he actually realized that, you know. So unfortunately, he couldn't fly that day, you know. So the appointment he had to meet up with in Australia, he couldn't meet up with it, you know.
Wow.
So if you don't know those nuances, you will just enter gown. A lot of people that have been turned back at the airport because simply they didn't have, you know, the documentation for a particular country that they were not flying to that country, they were just transiting through the country. But because they didn't have certain requirements that country requested for them to stop over. They could not fly, and this is money that they've paid for the flights, you know, possible loss of income, you know, if they don't meet up with the appointments that they are going for. On the good side of things, COVID-19 has made us realize that you can actually work remotely, because a lot of us eventually had to work remotely. I know a lot of people had a lot of babies, you know, during lockdown. The after side
COVID babies.
COVID babies were just everywhere. So, you know, pandemic babies, you know, came along.
Hey, but there's this gist that I read about vaccines and kids, especially these COVID-19 vaccines and kids. Do you have any insight about it?
I know that there are certain of the vaccines are approved for children from 5 years and above, and I'm really not sure of which of the vaccines are approved for children from 5 years and above. But I don't have any. I think it's valuable for children to actually receive the vaccine, because even though children don't have severe disease, they can transmit it really easily to themselves. Because a lot of times I ask the mothers that come and complain to me that, Dr. Renner, this baby has been having cough and catarrh every 2 weeks. I was like, see, as long as your child is in school, what happens is that when they get to school, they will lick each other's spoon, they will lick each other's face, and they will share things with themselves, and so they get themselves infected really easily. And so if it's coronavirus that they are going to transmit to themselves, then they'll do that really easily. So giving them the vaccine will actually prevent that, you know, transmission from happening, and to ultimately prevent adults, you know, in the home from getting the virus.
But is it, Dr. Ayo, is it normal for we to get the vaccine first dose, right? And after it, some people still catch the virus after it, right?
Yes.
Then we get second dose, and some people still catch it after it. And now they are telling us to get a booster, right? This is like 3 phases. This is strange. There's something they are not telling us that I don't know. But is it that those things are not giving them the result they wanted?
Man, so for instance, in the flu season in the US, they have to get the vaccine,
flu vaccine,
yes, every year. Every year. So during flu season, because, you know, people can actually catch flu really easily during flu season, which I think is about now, you know, winter, people are, you know, choked up indoors. They actually do have to get boosters every year for the flu vaccine. And the flu virus and the coronavirus are, you know, similar. They're quite related. Now, because these vaccines have been newly produced, and we really don't know, even though they tell us that, these are the figures, you need to observe people over time to find out how well the vaccine is working. So despite the fact that
I think the research was not,
the research was,
the time was too short.
So the time, so some research, some results for particular research is time based, such that if you give the person a vaccine now, and you measure, because what we produce, our bodies produce in response to a vaccine is what we call antibodies. So if you give somebody an injection now, within the next 2 weeks, you will measure the amount of antibodies. You don't know what it's going to be after 1 month. So you have to wait for that 1 month to measure the number of antibodies that they have. If you compare the 2 weeks antibodies to the 1 month antibodies, and you find out that it is increasing, you are happy, because you know that that means that the immune system, this vaccine is making the immune system to produce antibodies to fight off the virus. But if you now measure it 6 months down the line, you find out that this antibody level has now started to go down. No, at that point in time, they will now say that these antibody levels, they have come down to such a level that we don't think that your immunity is that the amount of antibodies you have in your body can fight off this virus if you get it effectively. That is why we now say you need to get
the booster
or another shot. And the same principle applies really with childhood immunization, such that sometimes antibodies wane over time, and then you now need to re-administer the vaccine so that the boosters come up. And that really is what the science is. The idea that sometimes, and for some vaccines, all you need is just one shot. So for instance, the measles vaccine, all we give here in Nigeria is one shot, and that's lifelong protection. But that simply is because of the nature of the virus and the nature of the vaccine. But this coronavirus is still new to a lot of people. So for some of us,
I think till now they still don't understand fully. Understand it fully. I totally
agree with you. It's still not fully understood. As a matter of fact, one might even say that it is poorly understood in some aspects. Of susceptibility, who can get severe disease, who won't. So those things.
But if we look at the projection when the whole pandemic started, what they were looking that we're going to get in Africa, it was way worse than what we got. Like as a matter of fact, I was in America, right? When it started. I wasn't even praying for my country. I was praying for Nigeria because America is my country. God
bless.
America is my country.
Carry me with
Nigeria is my home.
Don't leave me.
I was praying for Nigeria because I felt like, how do we want to handle this? If a whole America can be trembling
was
like this, what do you actually think worked? Because I think we are even less than 1% of what they projected. What do you think worked?
Man, the predictions were dire. The predictions were scary when we heard this. As a matter of fact, some people had said that the streets of Africa will be littered with dead bodies. Yeah. But thank God, prophets and prophetesses of doom were put to shame.
Mommy Geos.
Please, I'm not there. You want to chop air fire? As in, I was so I shared your sentiments because I was like, whoa, this is going to be really bad. People were asking me that, Dr. Renner, should I bring my baby for immunization? Immunization. There's corona in town. You can postpone the immunization. You want to come and catch this thing that is killing people left, right, center. Yeah. So, it really was that scary. Now, what do I think helped us? Quite frankly, I don't know. But I have theories, and I might be wrong. Theories are just what you think might have helped us. I think one, we don't travel that much. A lot of people have said that if you think we do in comparison, first of all, and IJGBs, this is no shade at you, but what we gathered was that it was people that had just come in.
They were bringing it
from the UK, from the US that actually brought coronavirus. Yeah. Exactly. For 30 December into Nigeria were the ones that brought the virus in. Majority of Nigerians don't really do that much traveling as compared to people in the West. People that are always in the Far East, they're in China, they're in Cambodia, then Kazakhstan. So that mobility made them bring the virus in large quantities. Two, we have a very large youth population. So severe coronavirus disease is actually found mainly in elderly people, diabetics, hypertensives, and the populations in the West, they have quite a lot of old people, quite a lot of elderly people 65 and above. But here, life expectancy, if you as a man, you live up to 55 years, just kneel down and thank your God, because life expectancy in Nigeria for men really is not more than 55 years. For women, it's a bit higher, maybe I might be wrong, but it's maybe 57 or so, but it's not very different.
For real?
Yeah, so life expectancy is so poor in Nigeria. So so our youth population is really large, and the elderly.
Yeah, because
people are not surviving to old age.
Yeah, Dr. Renner, somebody was talking to me yesterday. We were actually talking about the podcast, and it was going through some certain demography to me, and it was like, do you know that? I think it was 63 or 73% of the population. I think it was 63. He said 63% of the population is actually under 19.
Wow. Are you serious? That large?
No, he said that large. He said they are under 19
I didn't know that.
He said under 19 years old. And the person that was telling me is is a don. Is
interesting
creative director in one of the big companies.
Demographics.
Yeah.
So if that's the majority of the population, if a 19-year-old gets
so that could be
COVID,
very, very good.
It would just be like kata. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you'll give it to somebody else, and they move on. So so that also helped us. Then the third thing, and people have disputed that, and I don't think it's correct to say it's our weather, but I don't really think so.
I don't buy the weather thing.
I don't really buy the weather thing.
Another thing I bought was the fact that we live in a malarian-prone environment, and many of us, there is natural antibodies to malaria.
So some people actually did, give that possibility, that theory that because malaria gives you some degree of immunity or protection for some diseases. Yeah. Apart from malaria, that perhaps that immunity against malaria can actually help with fighting off coronavirus. Yeah. Not just malaria. So I believe that our environment, unfortunately, doesn't afford us the sanitary opportunity to be clean, essentially. And so most of us have drank gutter water, whether we like it or not, one way or the other.
We live in virus.
Somehow. See that bully that you think is very, very sanitary. One fly has perched on it that has want to dance inside the gutter, and you have eaten that bully.
But how come our body get used to those things?
Because
maybe that's the reason why we're having 55 years old life expectancy at the end of
so
the
that's
day.
part of the reason, funny enough. So the amazing thing about the human body is that most of us that have diseases will fight them off and they will go away by themselves, especially infectious diseases. Our bodies know how to repair themselves. It is when the body has failed to be able to repair itself that we now have to seek help of things like doctors and stuff. But for a lot of people, let's not imagine that the only reason or the major reason why people are dying so early is simply because of things like infectious diseases, malaria, things like hypertension, diabetes, stroke, kidney disease. They are really on the rise. The problem is that one, we're not keeping very good records to say that these are the figures, because one, people are not reporting to the hospital. Two, when they report to the hospital, they might not make the diagnosis before they die. Or three, if they make the diagnosis, there is no central database where these records are entered to say that 850 people had chronic kidney disease this month. And so if there are no records, then you can't plan healthcare to say that, look, these are the 850 people that have it. We might have much more than this because they're not coming to the hospital. What campaigns can we put in place to make sure that we are looking for these people and we are finding them and treating them? Because healthcare is not cheap. Healthcare requires money. You must advocate to see that this is the reason why. Because if this one person dies, look at how much money he was making for the country via GDP in a year. He was making about 20 million naira for the country in a year. If he dies, I tell you that we are going to lose that amount of money. Now, think about 40 people that were making 20 million for the country in a year, and they die 10 years before they really should have died. If you don't present arguments to politicians and policymakers by way of money, is entering here like this as they drink the it has gone out. So somehow I think we're not really doing that as a society.
Okay, so let me ask something. So the fact that a 19-year-old will eat without any underlying condition will simply dust out the virus like it's nothing, right?
Yes.
Why do our kids need vaccine?
Okay, so the children need the vaccine to protect the older people, the more elderly people, so the grandmas. So and
it's
the
actually
grandpas.
Not for them, it's for who they can transmit
who they can transmit it to. It's not really for them. They were saying that they wanted to introduce the COVID-19 vaccine into the routine childhood immunization. It's still something that is in the works. I don't really have any opinion about it, but I'm like, well, as long as it's not going to harm them, I'm okay. And vaccine is actually safe. But again, is it really necessary to put it into the routine vaccination? I don't know. It's still a debate that is going on. Yeah. But yeah, it's not really for the children's protection. It's really more for the people that they will come in contact with.
Yeah, because generally, if you actually read about the data and look at how many kids the virus has killed, is way.
Yes, it's fortunately.
It's throughout the world.
We've been very lucky. I was praying when the thing came actually that God, please, this must not affect children, because imagine if the children were getting it the way the adults were getting it. Yeah. Because children's immune system are not so good and they transmit viruses really easily. If they were falling sick and needing ICU admission and ventilation the way the adults were, how would we have coped? I personally would have turned into a bricklayer. I know doing. So I'm really grateful that it wasn't that bad. Come, I've gone technical. Let's discuss Mommy Jiwa. We are enter messing. Let's discuss Davido. That's it. Oh dear. Honestly,
the health sector in this country, you as a young doctor, and I'm sure you have all these dons in the medical world that you look up to as what's the communication like? Because you were saying something about if before they can give you a proper health plan, right? There has to be data that you guys can work with.
I can work with.
You know, okay, this is how much you're losing by losing this kind of people, right? But I don't even think that conversation is on the table for any reason. You as a young doctor, and I'm sure you have a whole lot of vision ahead that is promising. How do you think we're going to achieve that in next couple of years?
Okay, so data collection is very essential, and the truth of the matter is that donor agencies in the West realize this. So if you actually go around and find out if there's anybody collecting data, I mean, I've got to commend Lagos State, because Lagos State government in terms of healthcare is actually trying to do a lot in terms of data collection. But again, data collection can be very cumbersome, and then sometimes they give you forms, and the forms are very long. Hey, jam form no do pass like that. So really huge forms, and sometimes the healthcare workers can get a bit tired between sorting out actual patients and filling in the paperwork can be really challenging. So, and even though they do send people to check on these things so that are the forms being filled correctly or properly or regularly, sometimes like let's just fill something and shall give it to them. So sometimes even when data is collected, it's incomplete. So I do believe that sometimes you need to give data collection agents or agencies and individuals some kind of incentive. Some kind of incentive to do so, which is what the donor agencies in the West do. So the USAID, the WHOs, those people. So there's some kind of incentive that they offer to people who collect data for them. So that these are data collection officer. So every month we offer you a certain amount, some certain remuneration, even if it's recharge card, whatever it is, some kind of incentive to make sure that I'm not just adding work. Unnecessary, not necessary work, but nonetheless unpleasant work to my work, and I'm not getting anything out of it. And so that conversation needs to happen. The data collection is happening, but is it so? Now, for instance, I think the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has really done a great job, in collecting data on a lot of things. Now, is it happening in healthcare? Not to the extent that would be valuable. Yes, to actually produce data that will help us to plan. We're not good in planning, quite frankly. We're good in planning one bill, but when it comes to planning, looking 20 years ahead to see what will the health needs of the society be in 20 years time, and are we planning towards that? What are we putting in place? Who are we training to make sure that by the time those diseases emerge, we have the specialists available on ground to make sure that those things are sorted out? We're not doing that very much. When you talk about my generation and the old generation, I've got to give a shout out to my dad. Hi, Daddy. My father is a pediatrician. He's a professor of pediatrics. Professor James Renner. He's the quiet Naija Paediatrician, and he taught me in undergraduates, and postgraduate. So it's one of the proudest things in my life, actually. So I've been taught by my father. He's the gentlest and most generous person I know, but he really is. He really is probably, one of the exceptions, in the profession. I think there really is a huge gap between us and that and that generation. Unfortunately, we are really influenced by what we see around, and we are millennials. And what we are saying is that, Oga, still, I know that he was an honorable, dignified profession, but Range Rover.
Necessary. Brother, you are important.
So, so we are looking at, aside, and I won't lie to you, I enjoy what I do. I create value. I know what happens at work every day. When I get there, and because of my presence at work, a child will live to see his 5th birthday. Because I say that, this is the diagnosis, change this antibiotics to this, and the child goes home. Somebody that would have died. And because I went to work, the younger doctors, who aren't specialists, I taught them, I said that, look, this is how you recognize this condition, this is how you recognize that condition. So and I know that
the impact alone,
he's not going to treat just that one child, he's going to treat 100 other children, and if he recognizes that condition, they hopefully will survive, provided they can buy the drugs that they have, which is another discussion altogether. Entirely. And so we are creating a huge amount of value. It's just that sometimes when you now get debit alert, like, hey, another debit alert. No, So, and again, I don't want to, make it look as though, because despite the fact that we feel like we're not paid commensurately with the work or the value that we bring. it's across board in Nigeria, where people do this amount of work and they earn that amount of money, and every day, I mean, inflation, food prices, if nothing else, the price of accommodation and living, it has just skyrocketed. And so what was
insane,
what was a certain amount of money before, right now is practically nothing.
Dr. Renner, is insane. The level at which all these houses are just going crazy. You just be like, it's not worth it. Like, it's not. They're just overvalued, overpriced.
It's crazy. And
I don't know how a common man.
And let me call out Surulere. Surulere houses like this. Agents in Surulere, they will just take you to one kiosk like this and say, 5 million naira, pay 2 years. As in, honestly, maybe not 5 million.
Maybe not 5 million, but we know how
it's expensive.
How crazy those numbers are.
There are still 5 million houses that are still open.
That is really ridiculous. They say, it's central, really central. Now take you to one dump like this and I want to collect your whole savings in your life. No. So, but accommodation is really expensive, that's just it, especially in Lagos.
So you be a pediatrician, like one of the leading ones we have in this country. If you want to give mothers couple of tips, what are the things you line up for them?
Hey, so mothers are in categories. So there's the JJC that they don't know anything.
Fresh ones.
Fresh as in jam bite. The jam bites. So those ones, the advice is too much for this podcast. But what I'd say is that really discuss with a healthcare professional. And I know that I give grandmas wahala a lot, but please, grandmas, I love you. But and discuss with the older women in the what's it called, in your family as well, because they have a lot of experience. They know how babies act, they know how babies behave. And so discuss with them. Don't go it alone. Discuss with your pediatrician, discuss with the older women in the family that have raised children, and they'll give you valuable insights. But if there's anything that they are doing, that you are uncomfortable with, please discuss with the pediatrician before you let them go ahead. I know that the dynamics of interaction with one's mother-in-law can be difficult, such that a lot of mothers, they'll come and meet me and say, Dr. Renner, when the mother's grandma is outside, Dr. Renner, help me to tell that my mother-in-law that this thing that she's doing that is not good, because when I tell her, she doesn't answer me. So and then the grandma comes inside and then, grandma, please, and there's something I want to talk to you about. So pressing mentholatum on baby's body is not good though. So please don't be doing it again. Walking. So that unfortunate. So that is a practice that is really common, but it is potentially harmful. Because it can cause a level of jaundice, and jaundice is when the eyes turn yellow, that can actually damage the brain of the baby, such that for the rest of the baby's life, they might not hear properly, they might not move properly. And it happens particularly in babies that have a condition that we call G6PD deficiency. It's a condition whereby the red blood cells break down very easily, and it can lead to high levels of jaundice. So when that happens, we really don't want the mothers to rub mentholatum on themselves, on the baby, because it can actually cause significant levels of jaundice. So the massage can be done, if you must do it, with baby oil. Baby oil is fine. Mentholatum, I know it has a sensation of heat, but it generally does not keep you warm. It does not keep you warm. It just gives you the sensation. It's the same way if you were to what analogy can I use now? Is if you were to see that mentholatum, it's just a sensation on the skin that feels like heat. It does not keep you warm.
Stop using aboniki.
Exactly. If you even rub your hands together, it generates more heat than actually rubbing mentholatum on your skin. So at the end of the day, if you want to keep the baby warm, covering the baby is better than rubbing mentholatum. So that's the idea. So all those massage, stretch baby's arm to the back, throw baby up, those ones.
About force feeding.
Force feeding is the worst thing that a parents or a grandma can do.
And that thing is so common.
And it kills.
Till today, people still do it. You see them hang the baby and put the neck on their leg.
Exactly. So what happens is that babies generally, they cannot breathe through their mouth, so they must breathe through their noses. And so what they do is that they'll block the nose. So that then when the baby now tries to take in air through the mouth, that's the only way. Then they now force it in. And you see, as the baby is taking in the air, because you have blocked the nose, they're taking the air very forcefully, like and so the pap goes straight into the lungs, and the lungs don't tolerate water very well, or pap, or so talk less of something that has milk or sugar in it. It's just a recipe for disaster. For the older mothers, mothers to teenagers, mothers to toddlers and mothers to teenagers. I'm praying for you. I have you in my prayers. Only God can deliver you from that phase. Because toddlers, they don't hear what their own is no destruction, violence, and then teenagers are in a place where they are trying to find themselves, and so there'll be a lot of defiance. There'll be a lot of clashes. But I mean, these things can be navigated quite easily. I mean, parenting is so much wider than the health of the child.
Of the baby.
Parenting is about programming the mind of the child psychologically, making sure that they are well adjusted, and the pediatrician can only do so much. The rest of that really belongs to you and probably the child psychologist and people who can discuss with you as to your child. But generally, health tips, I would say lots of fruits and vegetables, sleep, exercise, reduce self-medication, make sure that you are going to the hospital early.
See, self-medication. We can discuss it a whole day. It is insane.
It is.
And it's not like it just started though. Many of us grew up on self-medication. Like a potential Nigerian mom is a potential pharmacist, nurse, doctor.
She's a hospital.
They will just put it together and say, oh yeah, wow, okay.
Then they are potentially a full hospital.
How much time how much time do we need to sensitize people's minds to make them understand that it is wrong? Baba, until I started traveling out of the country, that is when I actually realized that there are some level of drugs that you cannot buy over the counter.
You cannot unless you want to commit a federal offense. They will come with the FBI in front of your house. So the truth of the matter is that we transitioned from a place where essentially what we're using was agbo. And you don't need prescription for agbo per se. Just go and buy it. It works for this one. Keep it in your house. When you need it, you use it. Then Western medicine came, and Western medicine agbo. It's just that the agbo has been rolled into a tablet. So we just continued in that line of, okay, let's just go and pick up what I need for the condition I think I have. So first, a lot of us don't know what our diagnosis is. For a lot of us that think we have malaria, it's not malaria, it's Omicron. It's Omarion variant that is worrying. But you will still go to the pharmacy and you go and pick up anti-malaria. And after 3 days, you start to feel better because maybe you had a mild disease. A lot of these things that around Romy, it's probably just a viral infection that would have run its course. WHO recommends right now that you should actually test for malaria before you treat. If not, we're going to be dealing with resistance, such that the drugs that are working for malaria now will not work in 3 years' time, 10 years' time, because we have abused it so much to treat malaria that wasn't even there in the first place. Some people treat malaria monthly malaria treatment. Not necessarily because they are sick, but just because let it not be like I did not treat malaria this month, so that as to prevent it from happening.
When I was growing up, every Sunday there's one tablet they call Sunday tablet.
That Sunday tablet, I know.
We must take it. They're not born you well. Sunday tablet. Right? She'll call us in the living room. Take your own. Sunday tablet. She'll had 1 or 2, then put blood tonic.
All unnecessary. I mean, abroad you can't get antibiotics off the counter. You have to have been prescribed antibiotics by a physician before they give you, and the physician would have actually made the diagnosis before they give you. So a lot of us don't even know the diagnosis, and then we now go to the pharmacy, and of course regulation too is a problem, because there are a lot of pharmacies, let me not call it chemists. Chemists. They're even happier for na chemists they sell egg roll. And they tell you, so that they are happy to sell you medications that should only be given on prescription, simply because they just give me drug for typhoid and malaria, but they pay me, and they're happy to just give you ciprofloxacin. But
to control that, how do they have access to those drugs in the first place?
Well, okay, very great question.
Because it's supposed to be regulated from the top.
Great question. So I imagine that they have licenses to actually procure these,
You think those chemists have licenses?
Well, they should have let me rephrase. They should have licenses to sell medication. I think so. That let me state it like that. So, do all of them have the required licenses? I doubt it. I mean, that if it's Nigeria that we're dealing with,
they don't. So, the regular Emeka Chibuzo that has chemists all over the street of Lagos. They don't have the license. So they can just sell anything to you with no prescription, nothing.
So that's a huge problem, you know.
Having access to those
having
things.
access to those things and being able to sell them without any kind of prescription. So the two things. So I imagine the regulator, of course, I think is the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria / NAFDAC. You know, so they have their work cut out for them in terms of making sure that, you know, drugs that should only be dispensed on prescription should actually be given. And I imagine, I don't know, I mean, the pharmacists out there should correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that for you to be able to dispense medication, you know, from prescriptions from a doctor, you should either be a pharmacist or you should be a pharmacy technologist that has at least gone through some kind of training. Because you can't have pharmacists even in the primary healthcare centers in the hinterland. So we're talking about Magbonshegu village in Ekpe.
Yeah.
If there's a pharmacy there in the primary healthcare center, you don't expect the pharmacist to go and stay there.
Yeah.
So you do need somebody who has some kind of knowledge and training to be able to dispense drugs that should be given even on prescription. But I don't think that's the same thing that's happening in Lagos. It's not those pharmacies. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Nigerian problem, man.
And it all boils down to paper. You know, as so far say the 10 cartons of ciprofloxacin that I bought moves and I sell it. You know, what's my business with whether you think whether your diagnosis is right or not.
Well, whether you have license or not.
As long as you appear at the pharmacy and you ask for ciprofloxacin and I can sell it to you and make a profit. So what's my business with what it does to you in terms of side effects?
Yeah. Nobody checks all those things.
Again, doesn't it boil down to whether we respect and, you know,
value
life?
Yeah, because this sounds like it's an entire healthcare system problem. It's not just about, okay, the country is bad, you can get it's an entire system that is not working. And there are people there that are supposed to take care of those things. And
well, in those ones too, I kind of feel sorry for them, but they should do the work. Where would they start
from?
Where would they start from?
I think this is where we're going to start from, Dr. Renner. Having conversations like this.
Okay, so
right, because if their generation are not there to fix it, right? We have a new set of people like you leading this now,
you know,
right? So the more we open the conversation, the more people get the awareness that okay, maybe this is wrong, right? But because once they don't know, you cannot blame them for what they don't know. They don't know. A whole lot of people don't even know that it is wrong to go and get over the counter antibiotics. Yeah. They don't know. They just feel like
as in, and you know, I mean, it's one thing for antibiotics. Another thing, and you know, some people are going to get, you know, opioid pain relief medications that really should be really controlled. You know, drugs that are potentially addictive, and people are just selling it to them. You know, just bring your money and I'll give you the medication.
Dr. Renner, let me give you a shock. This one go choco. Do you know that chemists, right, performs abortion to people in this Lagos? Chemists will do surgery.
That's at the chemists.
Yes,
that's crazy.
We've seen cases where patients dies.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I've heard accounts.
I'm sure you must have heard.
It's still mind-boggling each time I hear it.
Chemists will do abortion for a normal street girl, and a whole lot of life just lost like that. So it's an entire system that needs to be, you know, I wish we can have more people to talk about it, you know, you know, like a very a sound pharmacist will give us I'm sure there are more insights. There are ways you could go about it. Even getting your drugs from General Hospital and all that, they still give you prescription. They won't. So it's not like they don't know. They know. The only thing is the normal guy that sells in the chemist does not go through the normal training and licenses. He just goes to where somebody ship it from another country, buy in bulk, take it to his shop and sell. Yes, really, that's it. Again, you now have to ask yourself, what is our own health-seeking behavior as Nigerians? We don't like hospital for a lot of reasons. Maybe we don't want injection. We don't like the smell of Izal in the hospital. Is that really the reason? Or maybe it's too expensive.
So it's money. So a lot of them is actually financial. So they cannot pay for consultation. Yes, they cannot pay. You know, sometimes they can, because you find out that this same person will go and, you know, spend 5K, 10K on beer, on Friday.
Yeah.
But to actually now go and see a doctor and give the doctor 8K for consultation, it becomes a problem because somehow he feels like the beer is a priority to me, but this illness, Shebi I've had it before, it didn't kill me. I beg, let me go to pharmacists. I will not pay a consultation. All I will do is that I will just give them the money, tell them, see, now waiting they do me be this, organ typhoid now, organ typhoid and malaria. So they will give you the drugs that they think will work for you, paracetamol, and then just throw a few things in that maybe you might not necessarily need, but at least it look like as if he will give you so many drugs. And you know, of course, he's making his profits on the thing. You haven't gone to the doctor. You have gotten the drugs that you need for the illness that you think you have, and you still have 8K to go and spend. So it's a win-win for the patient, but for the doctor and the healthcare system, it really isn't. And sometimes, you know, when those drugs don't work, you eventually end up back in the hospital on admission.
Now don't go through that process.
You
that you
spend longer.
Yeah.
And go through the process that you're trying to avoid in the first place.
Probably there should be a system where people can have access to affordable health service.
See, Jobless, the Nigeria healthcare insurance, the idea with healthcare insurance is that most human beings will be healthy. So if all of us, 10 of us in this room contribute 100 naira.
Sit in.
Okay.
I don't want to lose your...
Okay, sorry. If 100 of us, you know, contribute 100 naira, you know, sorry, my math is bad. Let's make it 5 of us contribute 100 naira.
That's 500 naira.
That's 500 naira. And throughout the year, and that's our contribution for the year. Throughout the year, fortunately, none of us fall ill, but it just so happens that towards the end of the year, I went to go and do dirty December. I didn't look where I was driving, and then I went to go and have a small accident. I had a fracture. We have 500 naira in the purse. All of you are fine, and then the cost of the fracture is actually maybe like 200 naira. Cost to repair the fracture is 200 naira, but all I have in my accounts is maybe 10 naira. So because we have all contributed, the 200, I have the 200 naira available to me to do the surgery, to have the surgery done, you know. And so think about it in terms of 200 million people. That contribution for a population that will mostly be healthy, hopefully. You cannot have everybody falling sick at the same time with the same degree of illness. Will everybody have accident at the same time? God forbid. Will everybody? So that pool of money will help to serve the healthcare needs. There is nothing, God bless, as difficult as having to spend money that you don't have on a healthcare need that you did not plan. When emergencies come, you know, God forbid, kidney issues, accidents, you know, I've seen people go bankrupt because they had a condition or a disease because they did not have healthcare insurance. 3 weeks in a hospital, depending on where you are, can be as high as 1.5 million naira, depending on the drug that you are giving you. And how many of us actually have 1.5 million naira stashed away anywhere? You know, anywhere. Even if it's in cooperative, you can't get a cooperative money just like that. You have to have, you know, waited for some time, you know, before they actually give you the money. So you either borrow or you have insurance, you know. So the idea is that if you have insurance, then you have a lot of money, and then they can give you, you know, the funds that you have kept away. So, and the truth and the good thing about insurance is that even if you have saved 10,000 naira with the insurance company, the value of the treatment that you have access to is usually much larger than the amounts that you have contributed to the health insurance scheme, such that, you know, you can have surgeries to the tune of millions of naira, despite the fact that you've contributed significantly less. So that really is the advantage. But are people on the road, and at the end of the day, you know, the healthcare in the formal sector, you know, people that are in banks, people that are in paid employment, yes, they contribute every month to a healthcare scheme or HMO or whatever. But what about the market woman? What about the bricklayer? Yes, what about the fisherman? You know, what about the person who is even unemployed? You know, so they're all Nigerians as well. So what's happening with them? And so we need to get healthcare insurance into the informal sector as well. Again,
into the informal sector.
Yes, into the informal sector, to tell them that, look, I know it might seem crazy to you, you know, that's how much am I really earning from selling this my fish, that I'll now be contributing money to healthcare insurance. I know they're sick now, but you tell them that now, so Mama Gbemi talk say she not they sick. and so she go die later from kidney problems. Say, no be kidney problem. I want you new. I want village people. That's what that's the next thing. Now the village people kill her. About this well. Notice they about this well. Now wait till I go talk.
And that's our thing.
That's our thing, but you really do need to narrate stories to them and tell them that this is why you should have this, such that if your child falls sick, even if you don't get money for pocket that day, you will still go hospital and then go treat your pikin, give her free treatment, free admission.
Do we have bodies or maybe private companies that serve that informal class now?
So there will be, they will exist, but unfortunately, I don't know any off the top of my head. They will exist, but they're not as visible as the ones that are servicing the formal sector, so the bankers and the whatnot. So they're not as visible or as audible as those ones. And yes, they do exist, but they're not so visible, that's it. And at the end of the day, they do need to go to the grassroots. So maybe they're not visible to me because really I'm not in the trenches. I'm not in the grassroots, and the grassroots people are not on Instagram. They're not on Snapchat. They're not on TikTok. So
there should be a way to communicate with those classes,
with that class and make them understand the importance. And so it cannot happen on social media. This is where it has to happen, which is where I think my transition needs to happen, such that when I don't balance, when I don't bamba for the social media thing, then I can now transit into really meeting them at the grassroots, because that's where the greatest need is actually, not really for the middle class, even though there are some middle class coconut heads that will not go and get insurance, but really the grassroots need it.
Even most of the public downfall buses and all these buses that pick people from one spot to another, right? They have no freaking insurance. They just give them a sheet of paper. I did renewal for one of my car a couple of days ago, and automatically the renewal came with an insurance.
Yes, an insurance. Yes.
Meanwhile, I have another company, Azam what's their name? Shout out to them. Fantastic insurance company that I use. So I was like, am I having two insurance policy on one car now? What's going on?
That automatic renewal came with an automatic insurance.
And they be like, this one comes with insurance. I'm like,
which insurance is that?
Which insurance is that? Not to talk of health.
Not to talk of health. Again, we just leave quite a lot to chance, and we imagine that I've enjoyed healthcare. I've enjoyed good health all my life. So you might not come down with a life-threatening infection, or you might not have hypertension, but when you think about the safety of our roads, Okadas that are not looking, or that are there was once I wanted to cross the road, and the way you are looking on the side where the traffic is coming from, and you have assumed that,
and it came from the other end.
That's
exactly what killed Daria Talade's brother-in-law.
Serious.
On the island here.
Lord Jesus.
The guy wanted to cross on. He'd already looked at his normal traffic direction.
Are you serious?
And a bike came from the other end.
Wow.
And it was actually a military person on the bike.
Wow. That's crazy.
And they killed the guy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's tragic, such a loss, such a tragic loss, just wow. I saw my life flash before my eyes.
From the other direction. I
saw when I was a baby, I was in Pampers, and the end has come. Just So that's tragic, to say the least.
Did you break bones?
No, it didn't hit me. Funny enough, it didn't hit me. No, just brushed. I felt the breeze, So
wow.
Crazy stuff.
Let me take one for the Gen Z.
Yeah, please take.
What's your take on weed?
On weed.
Because I'm a Gen Z logami when it comes to that level.
Oh my goodness. This is where we're going to be censored. NDLEA, just enter the chat. Enter the chat. See how they went to go and carry the what's his name, the general, that comedian.
The comedian, right?
The comedian. He choke.
But for some reason, I don't think he was able to get out of that.
No, he's out.
He got out of him. Yeah, he took him days, but I think they had strong case against
evidence.
Him. Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes. So here's what it is. Now let me give you the medical perspective on marijuana. Now, marijuana is, of course, a plant, the extract of which is a tetrahydrocannabinol. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Something. Yes, but that's the active ingredient.
CBD.
Yes, CBD. So once, and it has a lot of effects, on the central nervous system. Now, patients on cancer chemotherapy have been given cannabis, and I don't know what form in which it has been administered to them, whether it is a pill, whether they chew it, whether they use it to make a foriro. I'm not really sure.
Is it strictly on CBD or THC too?
So this is where you probably have more information than I do. I'm really not sure of which preparation it is, but cannabis extract.
Me,
you're interested in the subject.
Because I'm more interested
in the subject. So here's what it is. So they give it to them to prevent nausea and vomiting. It helps with pain relief. And it actually has, those benefits, and in some countries, cannabis has been legalized. Now, the problem that comes is where the question arises of cannabis being recreational. Is it allowed or is it ethical? Should cannabis be allowed to be recreational? Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the adverse effects, of cannabis, so you need to, so the advantages for medical wise, those are the things that it does.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the adverse effects, it reduces concentration. It does have the ability to impair, mentation, thinking,
memory loss,
and then, it does have the, even though I do need to find the reference for the memory loss. I'm not sure if that is, 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I think it's just people just talking.
Wow.
You also do need to consider the fact that even though marijuana is not as addictive as things like codeine and things like certain other opioids, there are people who have been known to get addicted to it, so that without taking marijuana they won't function properly. You really don't want to have to be dependent on anything to function. That in itself, regardless of what it is an addiction. So when it comes to the use of marijuana for recreation, how is it different from alcohol? If you think about it, because people abuse alcohol, people get addicted to alcohol. They lose their memory. They lose their thinking faculties. On top of alcohol. So,
and I actually think it's actually more dangerous.
If that's alcohol, right?
Yes.
Hey, interesting. Why?
Yeah, because there's a whole lot of poison in it.
So alcohol can be that liver damage,
kidney gone.
Your brain cells
your
actually
testicles.
your brain cells don't do well with alcohol.
Yeah.
So how really is cannabis different from alcohol? I think somehow cannabis has really just been stigmatized, because of the class of people that
takes
take it. People in the trenches, people in the streets.
And it's a lie.
And which is not true.
It's
not true.
We know.
People in banana. People in the banana island.
They are the real dealers.
People in the banana island. It's just that
but
you go look face where you go meet them and say, guys.
Then again, when they are taking it, right, there is a certain environment. There's some things on the table that you feel like, okay, what the fuck is going on there?
Exactly.
But people in the trenches, they feel no chop from morning.
But
they smoke this thing up and
exactly
down.
because it's available, it's cheap, and it will take your mind off the hunger, of the suffering. So from the medical aspect of things, quite frankly, in terms of recreation, cannabis is not different from alcohol by way of adverse effects and outcomes. So you now ask yourself the question as to, so why should it or why can it not be legalized, here in Nigeria? I think because there is a thriving black market trade, for cannabis, such that the people that are growing cannabis, are doing it clandestinely. They're selling it in the black market. Of course, you now ask yourself, okay, are they not selling in the black market because it has not been legalized? If they're legalized, they can come out, and sell it openly. But somehow there is that association, in our psyche of the association between cannabis use and criminality. They've associated cannabis use with criminality, which isn't always necessarily so. But until that mentality changes, it probably will remain a problematic issue in our society, and it probably will not be legalized. And as you've said, the matter is that, quite frankly, I don't know anybody that does so, but there are a lot of I've heard that there are a lot of responsible people that are the top echelons of society, that are high flyers in their profession, that
and they function well on these things.
They are function past mistake. As in, they are too high, open down, and they are smoking this thing, and they are, smashing goals, and so just ask yourself that really is it really as bad as they say it is? Isn't the problem with this criminality more of the idea of the environment in which these so-called criminals exist than the cannabis itself?
Right. And sometimes I even ask that, are they even open to conversations? Right. I mean, these authorities that are in charge of these things, because if countries that we look up to, we actually follow things they do, are now legalizing all these things and making it open, right? The last time I was in New York, you could actually get your weed from a corner store.
From a corner store.
You get it. So if they are opening up, and we as Africans are still doing,
I get. So what really is that about?
I did really, because there was one article I saw, one of the, I don't know, maybe somebody from the House of Rep or something, I said we will never legalize weed in Nigeria. And I commented that, sir, are you open to a debate on this? Because I know people that will finish in 10 minutes
on the subject.
They'll break it down for you and make you understand that why are these agencies not open to conversations?
Yes. And so again, it does come to this idea that in Nigeria, authorities should not be questioned, and so the authorities would not even want to hear anybody say anything about who are these.
That is it. As a matter of fact, you can't question your dad on some levels.
On some levels, you just
not to talk of authority.
Not to talk of authority. So I mean, the idea that and here's what happens. I know people will say that so if we legalize weed, then we might as well just legalize cocaine or legalize heroin. And again, you do realize that these drugs have significant addictive potential, and so legalizing those ones is very different from legalizing marijuana, because marijuana actually doesn't have that much of that addictive potential.
Again, there are even researches now that shows that some of those class 1 category of drugs are actually useful medically too.
Yeah, I mean, yes. As a matter of fact, yes. They do. I mean, because things like cocaine and heroin, I mean, they were used for end of life care for people who are going to die.
They use it to treat them. They administer it to them.
Exactly. So medically, I mean, those things are definitely useful. So when it comes to the question of weed, by the time if you legalize weed, it would actually reduce. Sorry, that would just make me sound like an area boy. If you were to legalize marijuana. If you legalize marijuana, the black market trade will significantly disappear.
Yes.
Why the black market trade is thriving now is because there's a lack of access.
Yes.
And once there's a lack of access, there is the availability of the opportunity to sell. In the black market.
Then another angle I actually look at it from is, if it is legalized, it will be regulated. There's so many people that smokes trash
precisely
because it's not regulated. Nobody knows where they're getting those shit from. They mix shit with
all sorts
people,
of things.
All sort of
I don't know if you've heard about how people open so they go to septic tank, open the sock away, and then they'll start sniffing. And then they now get glue, fuel. They'll inhale fuel just to get a high, just to get a high. And so you ask yourself that really, as in, I think every human being just needs that point in time when they can disappear from reality, for that brief moment. Whether it's a Netflix movie, whether it is alcohol, whether it is midweek fellowship, whether it is porn, sleep, whatever it is, you just need that brief moment where you can escape.
Do you have experience with psychedelic drugs?
No, so not personally.
Not personal experience.
No, not personally. Yes, but
do you know about it?
Yes, I've heard people tell all sorts of stories. About how when they used LSD, they could smell colors, they could hear sound. No, they could not hear sound. They could hear
pictures.
They could hearing the smell of. So how you say strong bone. Now they're really bone. They're really hearing the smell of things. So. But that brief moment, it gives them a certain degree of happiness. But it now begs the question that if as a human being, you kind of need, aid to be happy, then you
have the right to do that.
Yes, even though as a human being, right at the end of the day is dependent on the environment where you are living. Which right is that one? So if you, and I'm being very technical.
Yeah.
If your jurisdiction
being
says
in
that,
Nigeria,
yes, if your jurisdiction is
people,
yes, if your jurisdiction says that you are free to use LSD, then it is your right. If your jurisdiction does not say that you are free to use LSD, then it's not your right. It is a criminal offense.
Yeah.
But yes, people do have fun having these things. But I guess parties are more exciting, with these things.
LSDs,
those things. But I heard that right now there
DMT.
is a problem with crystal meth in Nigeria, and I didn't realize that there was, but yes, there's a huge crystal meth problem. So
wow.
So that's methamphetamine. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It alters your sensation,
Yeah.
alters your mind, and people are going crazy. It's in the East, it's everywhere. And I heard that it's a real problem right now. But because if you are going to use a drug and it's going to alter you to the extent, and not in the minutest quantities, that's going to alter you to the extent that you are either violent or you lose control of your senses, especially violence. You lose control of your senses. Then is that what really you should be taking?
Yeah.
But again, so it means that the authorities really do need to have a conversation with experts, addict experts, medical experts, to say that, look, what are the addictive potentials of some of these drugs, and which ones should we completely scrap, and which one should we deal with? Because at the end of the day, yes, they are regulating and they are trying to fish out the criminal elements, but is it working? And is it working for all drugs?
Because even as much as with their strict regulations and everything, all these kids still have access to all these things. They get it. They get it like their fingertips. So what exactly are you doing? It's more or less like you ain't doing nothing. Because and I think the reason why many of them actually go out for all these things is because they know you cannot easily get it.
I mean, it's nice when they show us, things like, we intercepted, 10 tons of, heroin, as on a container coming in from Niger Republic, all those kind. It's nice to see. But at the end of the day, there are still children on the street still using these drugs, and so that is the one that really needs to be addressed. We're legalizing it, reduce, the legalizing it, of course, will make its use more mainstream, but people will not hide to do it. People will not be the black market trade will be reduced. And unfortunately, the problem with that, with black market trade in any kind of sphere, it comes with criminality. Because with black market trade, for you to transport your goods from point A to B, you probably will hire people that have the potential to carry weapons, to just make sure that your goods are secure. When you now get to the selling point, you probably have to pay some overlords to make sure that you get so it fuels a whole ecosystem of criminals in the underground. So and even if you are dealing with the people that are selling the cannabis, how are you dealing with the other underlords? Because and unfortunately, these underlords sometimes they are really powerful politically, such that on the one hand you think that you are making an effort to get rid of these things, but on the other hand they are meeting the legislators and they are giving them, they are making sure that their interests are protected. And as long as they remain powerful as overlords, then you really are not going to be able to do anything about the black market trade. So that is, I should be writing movie script.
Wow.
King of Gay. Oh no,
there's a whole lot to talk about, but I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna stop it here so that I can have another session with you in like another 1 month.
I can't wait.
Because there's some questions my Gen Z people already told me, ask him about sexual transmission diseases.
So
what should we do?
I'll be happy to answer the questions about STDs in the next session. Yes, in the next session. Even though the people that I'm in charge of, my constituency members, it's not such a huge problem for them except they enter adolescence. What I've heard abroad actually is that if a teenager, for instance, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old actually wants contraception, she doesn't have to seek permission from her parents. She can just go into the reproductive clinic and tell them that I would like contraception, which one is good for me, and they will offer her. And she doesn't need to let her parents know. Matter of fact, it's like, I was like,
Dr. Renner, let's give them your social media handle.
Orishi. So my handle is at the Noisy Naija Paediatrician. It's a mouthful, but
Yes.
Noisy Naija
Naija
Paediatrician on Instagram. And on Twitter it's at the Noisy Naija P1. I'm also active on Twitter, but yeah, you know, at the Noisy Naija P1. So but yeah, you'll find me on Instagram at the Noisy Naija Pediatrician. I'm making plenty of noise.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. Let's give them the glasses pose, you know. Kala. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Jables. And I just, you know, I mean, thank you for everything that you did for the Nigerian music industry, you know, in the day. And I think this is going to be huge. You know, this platform is going to be huge. The day, as I said, the day you have Wizzy on, invite me that day. invite me.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Honestly, so this is going to be huge. And big up, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody. Love you. See you next time.
Oh, my name is Jobless.